In 1972, the small forest village of Pine Morrow was abandoned overnight. No signs of violence, no note, no survivors, just empty houses, still warm meals, and miles of forest silence. No one knew why. Until in 2023, a construction team working on a new highway accidentally cut through part of the old village perimeter. They called it a harmless archaeological dig, but 4 days later, 2 workers went missing, and the third returned without eyes, just hollow moss-filled sockets. The government sealed the site, so of course that made it the perfect destination for a group of curious hikers. Samir, Nina, Leo, and Hannah were old high school friends reunited for a no-tech weekend hike. They weren't thrill-seekers, just nature lovers. They found out about Pine Morrow on an old Reddit thread, rumors of an overgrown village hidden in the woods. They followed a forgotten trail. At mile 6, things got weird. Nina noticed the roots underfoot were too uniform, spaced perfectly, like a net. Leo thought it was a neat, natural quirk. Samir took a picture and joked, "Watch, they're watching us." He was right, just not in the way he thought. They found the village by accident. Old cabins buried in ivy, a well in the center, a church at the edge, its steeple split down the middle by a massive dead tree growing straight through it. The tree was wrong, no bark, its wood looked like bone. Carvings spiraled up the trunk, not words, but faces, screaming ones. Leo got nauseous just standing near it. They should have left. Instead, they explored. Inside the church, they found pews broken, altar gone. Beneath the altar was a trap door, and below that, the roots. Beneath the church was a vast underground space, dirt walls, no construction, just miles of tangled roots glowing faintly orange, like they were filled with pulsing blood. Samir dropped his flashlight. It rolled into the roots. The light went out, then flickered back on, revealing something staring back. They all saw it, but none of them agreed on what it looked like. Hannah said it looked like a child with too many teeth. Leo said it was a woman with eyes like knots. Nina didn't say what she saw. She just backed away and whispered, "We're inside it." That night, their dreams were vivid, too real. Samir dreamt he was buried alive, roots wrapping around his lungs. Leo saw a version of himself with tree bark skin, whispering in riddles. Nina saw her childhood home, but her parents were made of leaves, and they kept feeding her dirt. Hannah didn't wake up at all. They found her still breathing, but tangled in roots that had grown through her sleeping bag, wrapping around her wrists and ankles. The roots retracted when they cut them, as if alive, as if watching. Nina started acting strange, silent, detached. She wandered off constantly, muttering things like, "They're listening through the soil," and "We were meant to feed." Samir tried talking to her. She whispered, "It's not dead, it's dreaming." When asked what she meant, she bled from her nose, then smiled and said, "Soon." They found her the next day kneeling at the base of the root tree, humming a tune none of them recognized. When they approached, she turned and screamed in a voice not hers, "Leave before you're remembered." They tried to leave. The path was gone, compass dead, GPS fried. They walked for hours in one direction and ended up back at the well. Leo panicked and ran, disappeared into the trees. When Samir and Hannah caught up, they found only his clothes, laid out neatly, boots beside them. No blood, just roots crawling up the fabric. They heard a voice, Leo's voice, calling from beneath the ground, "Come back, I'm still warm." They didn't dig. They couldn't, because the ground was breathing. That night, Samir and Hannah made a fire. They burned some of the smaller roots they'd pulled out of the ground. The fire screamed, not crackled, screamed. Faces bubbled in the flames. And then Nina appeared. Except it wasn't really Nina anymore. Her eyes were pitch black, her mouth stretched too wide, and her skin had cracked, revealing small, root-like tendrils underneath. She said, You were invited, but not all are chosen. Samir tried to attack her with a knife. She just stepped into the shadows and vanished. The fire died instantly. Hannah disappeared next. Samir woke to find a trail of footprints leading to the well, and at the bottom, Hannah's voice, humming the same tune Nina had, but not pleading for help, just singing. He lowered the rope, and it was pulled in suddenly, snapping taut. Then silence. Samir didn't run. He walked back to the church, back underground, back to the root chamber. He lay down on the dirt and listened. In the final journal Samir kept, found days later by a lost hunter, he wrote, "It's not a tree, it's memory. This forest remembers every person, every scream, every dream. It grows through them. It wants stories. It feeds on us. We rot, and it grows. It doesn't kill us. It plants us." The last page was soaked in sap, smelled like decay, and written in unfamiliar handwriting was the line, "One always tells the story. The rest become part of it." In 2016, a 3-man wildfire response team went missing during a routine patrol through Dead Root Ridge, a section of forest known for spontaneous fire outbreaks and unusually fast regrowth. They were only supposed to be out for 48 hours. They never came back. Rescue helicopters found nothing but ash circles, perfect rings burned into the ground. No signs of struggle, no bodies. Radios were left on, batteries dead. The last transmission was a whisper caught in static. "Zero. We found zero." No one knew what it meant. The case was closed. Until 2024. Meet Nora, Jules, and Ash, YouTubers who specialized in forbidden nature content. Their channel was booming, but the audience was craving something bigger. So when Nora found a half-redacted PDF online labeled "Trail Marker 0, Do Not Investigate," she knew they'd found gold. They planned a 3-day trip into Deadroot Ridge. They brought cameras, food, bear spray, but none of it could protect them from what watches between the trees. Day 1 was uneventful. Forest looked ordinary, too ordinary. The growth was weirdly uniform. Trees spaced exactly the same. No fallen branches, no insects. Then Jules spotted the first marker, a red square nailed to a pine. Simple, bright, faded. It read, "Trail Marker 3. They kept walking. An hour later, another. "Trail Marker 2. Ash pointed out something strange. The numbers were descending. Not a count of distance, but a countdown. They should have turned back. The sun dipped fast. The shadows between trees stretched unnaturally long. That night, Jules found a small stone structure like a shrine, half buried in dirt. On it, a marker that read 0 beneath it, scratched in faint letters, "Do not enter." Behind the shrine was an opening, a perfectly straight path, unlike the wild terrain around them. Dead trees lined the path, stripped of bark, blackened like they'd burned, but not recently. No ashes, no smell, just that same unnatural spacing. The crew debated turning around, but Nora was obsessed. She stepped through the marker. The others followed. The forest changed. Inside Zero Trail, things grew. Wrong. The sun no longer moved. It just hovered, stuck in late afternoon glow. They walked for hours and somehow ended up back at the same blackened tree, over and over again. They started marking trees with their initials. The markings vanished minutes later. When they tried to walk off the path, the ground turned to wet, sucking mud, dragging at their boots like hands. That night, Nora found a fire pit still burning, but no one else was around. Ash came back the next morning, but something was off. He didn't remember leaving. His pupils were huge, skin pale. He kept saying he felt taller. Jules noticed Ash's shadow was wrong. It stretched in the opposite direction of the sunlight. Ash grew more distant throughout the day, would stop mid-step and just stare at trees. That night, they tied him up. By morning, he was gone again. Only the rope remained, tied in a perfect noose. The ground beneath it was ash white. Part jewels vanished during filming. The footage, what they recovered, showed him walking off-trail, whispering to something not visible. He repeated, "He's waiting. I see him now." Then he screamed, not in fear, but like he'd been peeled open. The camera kept rolling. A figure moved in the distance, tall, lanky, skinless, slick red muscle, antlers made of wood. It stared into the lens and grinned, then static. Nora was alone. She stopped recording. Her flashlight batteries died one by one, even unused. The trees started whispering her name. Everywhere she looked, she saw the same marker. 0, painted on bark, burned into leaves, etched into rock. She found a clearing full of ash rings. In the center, a huge tree, black, leafless, pulsing like a heart. At its base was ash. His eyes were sewn shut, mouth sewn open. From it spilled pine needles and teeth. The tree spoke, not with words, with memory. Nora saw her past, flashes of her childhood, trauma, regrets, projected through the branches. She couldn't look away. She couldn't move. Then she heard the same whisper the fire crew had transmitted years ago. 0 found us. 0 keeps us. She understood then. 0 wasn't a number. It was a name, a presence, a god, or something like it. Born from all the burnt forests, fed by loss, worshipped by silence. She doesn't remember how she got out, only that she woke up on a roadside 2 towns over, dehydrated and sunburnt. She screamed when she saw her reflection. Her pupils were dilated. Her hair had turned ash gray. She spoke to no one for weeks. Then she uploaded the footage. The last frame is corrupted, colors bleeding like veins across the screen, but you can hear a voice whisper right before the video cuts. One left, always one left, to tell the story. 4 university friends, Maya, Ellis, Ben, and Rhea, planned a weekend camping retreat in the isolated Bracken Hollow Forest, a place known for its untouched beauty and its vanishing hikers. Locals warned them, "When the fog rolls in, stay indoors. If you hear your name, do not answer." But they laughed it off. Urban legends were part of the fun, right? They packed tents, booze, and a GoPro to document their misadventures. They hiked in Friday morning. By Sunday night, only one came out, and she wasn't the same. The first night was perfect. Bonfire, music, stories. On night 2, things shifted. The fog came in fast, pouring over the trees like liquid silk. It muffled sound, muted color, made the forest look wrong. Ben thought it was beautiful. Rhea thought it felt like drowning. Then the first voice came, a whisper, software, beckoning. "Maya, come see." She stepped toward it without realizing. Ellis caught her just in time. Her eyes were glazed, her mouth open. She didn't remember hearing anything. They should have left right then, but the fog wouldn't let them. By morning, the forest had changed. Their trail markers were gone. The compass spun in circles. GPS refused to connect. Even the sun didn't feel right. It rose too fast, then hung there, unmoving. They walked in what they thought was a straight line, only to return to their own abandoned fire pit, now cold. Then Ben noticed something worse. There were 5 sets of footprints. They were only 4. That night, the fog grew thicker. Movement flickered within it, a shape, too tall, too thin, moving like a puppet with broken strings. It watched from the tree line. Ben approached with a flashlight. The others screamed for him to stop, but he kept walking, like drawn by a magnet. Then the light dropped, and the screaming began. They found Ben an hour later, at least, what was left of him. His eyes were gone. His mouth was stitched open, but he was still breathing. He kept trying to walk into the fog. They tied him to a tree. The fog whispered more that night. Voices they recognized, dead friends, family. themselves. Ellis heard his mother's voice, she died years ago, calling him to come home. Rhea heard her little brother. Maya heard herself laughing. The worst part? The voices were coming from Ben's mouth, still sewn shut, but the sound was definitely coming from inside him. Ellis stayed up to watch Ben, kept a knife ready, but just before dawn, the fog parted briefly, and Ellis saw it. A figure standing inches behind him, taller than any human, its face a blank oval, its limbs too many and not enough. He couldn't scream, couldn't move, just watched as it raised a hand and placed one finger against its blank face, a gesture to shush. Then it vanished. When Ellis turned around, Ben was gone. So was the rope, but blood trailed into the fog. Maya and Rhea tried running, just blindly sprinting in one direction. After an hour, they saw something up ahead. Hope sparked. It was their own tent, but it wasn't as they left it. Inside, their gear was shredded, photos were burned, the GoPro smashed, and something new had appeared. A journal, bound in animal skin. Inside were entries, dozens, all with different names, all telling the same story. Each one ended with a phrase, "The fog takes 3, leaves 1, always 1. Rhea broke down. She started shouting at the trees, mocking the fog, daring whatever it was to come get her. Maya begged her to stop. Then the fog thickened like floodwater. A shriek rang out, not human. Rhea was gone in seconds. Only her shoes remained, still warm. Maya ran for hours, unable to tell if the screams she heard were real or just in her head. Then the fog lifted. Maya staggered into the nearest ranger station barefoot, bleeding and wild-eyed. She couldn't explain what happened. Her voice trembled every time she said, "fog." The rangers took her to a hospital. Psychologists assumed trauma, survivor's guilt. But something was wrong. Cameras often malfunctioned near her room. Nurses reported hearing voices coming from her when she was asleep. Voices that didn't match hers. She spoke in tongues. One time she spoke backward for 6 minutes straight, saying the phrase, "He lives in the breath between trees." 1 week later, someone logged into Maya's cloud account and uploaded a video, a single 3-minute clip from the shattered GoPro, corrupted but partly salvageable. In it, fog swallows the tent. Then a face appears, smooth, no features. It leans close to the lens and whispers, not with words, but through the viewer's thoughts. "You watched. Now I know you." Then static. Thousands reported nightmares after watching it. Some said they heard their name whispered in their sleep. Others claimed to see fog gathering on clear nights. And one girl was found sleepwalking into the woods whispering, "One left, always one." Jordan Blake, 26, experienced and well-prepared, vanished while hiking solo in the Whistler Pines Nature Reserve. His GPS tracker pinged its last location on Trail 43, a route known only to the most seasoned trekkers. Park rangers found his tent, his gear, even his half-eaten trail mix. But Jordan was gone. The search lasted 2 weeks. Dogs wouldn't go near the area. Drones lost signal. Locals warned the rangers not to go too far into the screaming pines, a dense, twisted part of the forest few dared to mention. No one found him, until 5 years later. In October 2023, a man was spotted stumbling out of the woods, barefoot, bearded, and half-naked. He said his name was Jordan Blake, but he hadn't aged a day. Medics assumed trauma, amnesia, but his fingerprints matched. When they asked where he'd been, all Jordan said was, "It doesn't stop screaming. The trees, they scream at night." Then he stopped talking altogether. Doctors transferred him to a secure psychiatric hospital. But 3 days later, Jordan vanished from his locked room. No sign of forced exit. Only a pile of pine needles on his bed and scratch marks on the window, deep claw marks on the inside. Enter Cora, Levi, Sammy, and Daniel, an indie docu-crew specializing in unsolved cases and internet horror. They pitched a forest episode. Where is Jordan Blake? They weren't the first to try, but they'd be the last. They entered Trail 43 with cameras, a drone, and a satellite phone. Forest was peaceful at first, birds chirping, sun filtering through tall pines. But by evening, they noticed it. The silence. Not natural quiet, but a total absence of life. No birds, no bugs, no wind. The trees grew unnaturally tight, and they leaned inward like listening. Daniel joked it felt like the woods were holding their breath. That night, Cora woke to a noise, not an animal, a scream, long, guttural, human, but warped, like someone was being pulled into a shredder. It came from deep in the pines, and it didn't stop. Next morning, the group noticed red trail markers painted on the trees, but they hadn't been there before. They followed them, assuming it was an old ranger path. Then the markers began to change. First red, then darker, then black. Each marked tree looked twisted. Bark peeled in shapes like faces screaming. One tree was warm to the touch. Another pulsed, like it had a heartbeat. Daniel tried cutting into one with a knife. It bled. Thick, dark sap oozed out, followed by a sharp cry from somewhere behind them. Not animal, not human, something in between. Sammy vanished that night. No sound, no struggle. Her sleeping bag was zipped, empty, but there were pine needles inside it, and on the outside of everyone else's bags, and scratched into the nearby tree. We took her back. Cora and Levi insisted they leave, but Daniel, obsessed, pushed on. "We're close to the core," he said. They followed the black markers and stumbled upon a circular clearing, the Whisper Grove. Dozens of tall pines surrounded them, forming a perfect ring. No leaves on the ground, no branches, no wind. But you could hear whispers, soft, almost chanting. Each tree seemed to speak as the wind moved through them. Except there was no wind. Daniel stepped into the center. The whispering stopped. Then a scream burst out of every tree at once, high-pitched, unified, ear-shattering. Cora fell to her knees. Levi ran. Daniel didn't move. Cora found Levi hours later, huddled behind a rock, sobbing. He'd seen something. He kept saying, "It was her, but it wasn't her." Sammy's face, but wrong. Her eyes were too wide. They tried to return to camp, but their trail was gone. The forest had changed, trees shifted, compass spun, GPS glitched. That night, Cora woke up to a whisper in her ear, "One more, then you go." She turned. Levi was gone. Only his boots remained, filled with pine needles. Cora ran. She ran until her feet bled, until her voice broke. Then, she found him, Jordan Blake, standing in a grove, pale, silent, arms outstretched. He whispered, "They keep me alive so I remember the screams." His skin was etched with tree bark patterns. His mouth opened wider than it should, and he screamed. A scream that shattered branches, shook birds from trees, and split her vision in two. When she woke, it was morning. She was alone. Outside the forest, covered in bruises and sap. Cora survived. Barely. She uploaded some footage before her account was shut down. She's in therapy now. But sometimes she wakes up to find pine needles in her hair, or hears faint screaming when she turns off the TV at night. The footage shows the forest twisting behind them, and one final clip, only 2 seconds long, of a massive tree at the center of the grove. Not a tree, though. A figure. Tall, bark-skinned, hollow-eyed, screaming, waiting.